Welcome to the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce here again with Zack, Hewlett, and tonight we're joined by Anthony Stoddard. Anthony, where are you joining from?
I'm joining from West Jordan, Utah.
All right. And
West Jordan.
Yes.
we appreciate you supporting your wife in Relief Society.
Yeah. She had they had a little Christmas dinner or something going on tonight, so she made it home just in time.
That's important.
Oh yeah.
All right. So we'll get started with the timing and the story around how you got your call or how you decided to go on a mission and what you thought about that. And then we'll skip over the mission, talk about what you've been up to since then, and then we'll come back and reminisce.
All right,
So go ahead.
Good. So the timeline was I went out. I believe we left July 4th, and then got there July 5th, 2006, to July 5th, 2008. And then I always planned on going on a mission. It was always kind of in the cards. My dad served. I had two other brothers that served, set good examples for me. Had a younger brother who was looking up to me, so I wanted to go and set a good example for him and also go. So it was always kind of something I wanted to go and do. Turned in the mission papers. Didn't do anything too fancy when we opened up the mission call. Just kind of had the family together and went and read it. Did kind of what everybody else did, and Scotland, Edinburgh Mission. But we were all pretty excited. That's where a lot of our ancestors are from. So it was really cool to be able to go back there or go over there to be able to go and serve the people and see some of the things over there. My brother that was just older than me was actually on his mission, and came home like 3 months after I was out.
Wow.
So I missed him for 4 years, and then my younger brother was in the MTC when I came home
Oh my
from
gosh.
my mission. So my dad
man.
got special permission, so I was able to go and meet with him for like a half hour in the MTC and
That's cool.
and go and see him before he left. So my parents had 3 missionaries, like 3 sets out for like 6 straight years.
That's incredible.
I
bet they got blessed. Very, very blessed.
Oh yeah. And then after the mission, just got home, started working. Thought about going to school. Took a few classes here and there at the community college, but school and me just didn't really get along. So just kind of worked, saved up money. I started when I came home. I worked at Best Buy, just a little retail shop. Wasn't the best. I mean, it was fun working there, but working Black Friday and doing all that stuff was kind of rough.
Yeah.
And then got a job working for a uniform delivery company. I did that for 4 years. And then that's where I found the job that I'm working at now. I work for a water company called Taylorsville Binion Improvement District. We go and service and provide water for the city of Taylorsville and some of the surrounding areas around there. So I've been doing that for 7 years now. It's been fun. I enjoy it.
So do you wear the uniform that you used to deliver?
No, I used to. We actually decided to go and just kind of go and buy our own uniforms and go that route. So the uniform company still comes around and changes out the mats and different things like that, but no more uniforms from them. So and then I met my wife. So we've been together 14 years. About 14 years and married for 12. We have 3 kids, Bryson or Jaden, who's 9, going to be 9 on the 12th of December this month. Adeline, who's 6, and Bryson, who's 3.
All right. Well, let's go back then to July 2006, and you can talk about the MTC experience you had there, or just roll into Scotland, however you want to do it.
Yeah. I remember leaving on the airplane. That was the first time I ever rode on an airplane, was leaving the country for the first time.
Your
So
first flight was international?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
it was during the time that they were still like the heavy security. So my parents couldn't walk me back to the gate. It was, you met at the security and then you walked through there and off you went. And that was the last time I saw him. So then got over to the MTC. I actually had 2 companions in the MTC. I can't remember the first one. But the second one was Elder Nelson. He ended up serving in England. The MTC was a great experience. Learned a lot from the teachers, going and studying lessons and doing things from Preach My Gospel. We weren't able to go and play any sports or do anything because I guess some of the missionaries before us, somebody injured themselves and had to go home. So the mission president, like the MTC president, said, like, yeah, no fun, no sports, no activities.
No fun.
Leisurely stroll.
Yeah, walk around the temple, things like that, but no sports, no activities. So, and then left the MTC, and I can't remember if we took a train or if we all went in a bus. We were I was part of a bigger group. I think we had 15 missionaries that went out. And so I can't remember if it was a bus or if it was a train, one of those. And then we got to the MTC or the mission home really late. And I was actually, our group was actually President Fredrick's first group in the mission.
Okay.
Because he came in and then our group showed up. And I remember getting off the bus, and it was the weirdest thing. Like I'm kind of a bubble kind of person. And we got off the bus and saw the assistant, and they came up, and I went to go and shake their hand. They're like, no. We don't do that in this mission. We hug. And so they gave me a big old hug, grabbed me, and I was just kind of like, oh, I don't know about this. Like, my personal space. But it was pretty fun the first night. And then I think we stayed there the night. I don't think we slept. We all just kind of messed around and goofed around. And then we met our trainers the next day. And my trainer was Elder Travis Trotier. And he was awesome. He probably was wondering what he was getting into with me, because I remember seeing some pictures from when you go and stand in front of the map and they point to where you're supposed to be going and everything else. And I just had like deer in headlights look on my face. Like, what am I getting myself into? Like,
You're not the only one.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Goodness. That map where you're like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah. And so we ended up going and then headed to my first area was Kilmarnock. Great area. The members there were pretty awesome. The flat that we stayed in was interesting. The people down below us didn't like us very much. And the floors must not have been very thick, because we could hear him yelling and arguing with his partner, whoever he was with, all the time. Yeah, he was a great guy. Travis was a great guy. We didn't do a whole lot of missionary work. I don't know if you guys are planning on talking to him anytime soon.
Or we've reached out to him, and he has sent in, I think when we asked for messages for President and Sister Vriens, when we spoke with them, he sent in a message. But I keep emailing him and sending him messages, and he hasn't gotten back to me. So if you're still in touch with him, Anthony, make sure you let him know that we're trying to track him down.
All right, I'll see what I can do. I've seen him around. He must not live too far from me, because I've seen him around at stores and different things, and he'll he'll still come up to me and be like, "Oh, my boy, my boy." And my wife just looks at me like, "What is he talking about?" So I have to go and explain to her like what it is. But with him, we didn't do a whole lot of missionary work, mainly because he was dealing with some health problems at the time.
Okay.
I'll let him kind of go into that. I don't want to go and kind of release some of his medical history or whatever, but
Yeah.
we did
Let's
went
avoid
out
the
and,
HIPAA violations.
yeah. but, I mean, we'd go out and do some finding here and there, but it was definitely a culture shock in Scotland, coming from Utah. Just I think the first day we walked past a guy who was passed out drunk on the side, like on the sidewalk. I looked at him and I was just like, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's just normal. Like you'll get used to that. You see him all the time."
It's normal.
Yeah. And then I remember the first house we went to was a member, and she had the thickest Scottish accent that I've ever heard. And out of anybody that I met on my mission, I could not understand her at all. And the only bits and pieces that I got out was she kept saying the word Ken. And I looked at my companion. I was like, "Who's Ken? Like, what is she talking about? Ken? Like, I don't know Ken." So he explained all that to me and kind of, but
You didn't Ken.
yeah,
You didn't Ken.
yeah. But with Elder Trotier, I actually went through kind of a rough time on my mission. I actually just really kind of started talking to my family and stuff about it. I actually had very serious thoughts of talking to President Fredrick and going home. I felt like we weren't doing a whole lot of missionary work, so I was kind of down, depressed. Felt like I was wasting the Lord's time. I was wasting my time. So kind of felt like it would just be better off if I went home. It's kind of probably better off that I was serving overseas. Because I probably would have just got on a plane and went home if I could have. But one day when I was doing my scripture study, I came across a scripture that basically told me just to kind of wait it out, like things will get better. It eventually did. Stayed out, had fun, enjoyed my mission, but it was definitely a rough time. That first 3 months I was with Trotier, just didn't do a whole lot, but it's not of any fault to him or me. He just health-wise couldn't do it.
Yeah. That is a struggle when your companion can't get out. And I can't imagine for 3 months being in that situation. That would be tough.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of studying in. We had to go and visit a lot of hospitals, doing a lot of different testing, things like that. I remember one time we had to go and see a specialist, so we ended up spending the night at the mission home. And Sister Fredrick, I love her. Her great idea was to go and get some apple cider vinegar and warm it up and drink it. And she said she did that all the time. And so we go and get it, and we start smelling it. And we're like, this doesn't smell good. Like, I don't want to drink this. And so I told Elder Trotier that I'll do it with you. And that was probably the worst decision. As soon as I drank that, I ended up going right to the sink and just it was terrible. But Sister Fredrick, she was awesome.
She didn't tell you to drink a Sprite and you'll be all right?
No. That's what my parents always told me. Apple cider vinegar was her way to go, but never again.
Oh, man. Too funny.
And then, so I was with Trotier for 3 months in Kilmarnock. Then we got moves calls, and I was told that I was going to be getting a new companion. So I served with Elder Jason Canucci.
Ah, yes.
And he was awesome. I got along well with him. He taught me quite a bit, working with the members, going and setting up appointments and things like that with them. Stuff that I kind of wasn't used to. So it was nice change.
This is still in Kilmarnock?
Yes, in Kilmarnock. Jason Canucci came in. Had some great experiences with him. We had a few run-ins with the zone leaders. Did some things, not really bad things, but around Christmas time, President Fredrick said we could go into members' homes and watch movies as long as we were spending time with the members. So Canucci had a good idea that we'll just go and borrow a TV from a member and put it in our flat. And then we'll just borrow movies and just watch them at the flat. Me being a new missionary, I'm thinking like, oh, this must be how it goes. Like, I don't know anything. So we're out doing stuff, and we get a call from the zone leaders asking us to come back to the apartment because they want to go and talk about some stuff. But little did we know they had a key to our apartment and had already gone through and looked at everything and saw the TV. And so we get back to the apartment, and they're just like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Like, you need to get this out today. Like, go and take it back. Like, that's not going to work. We can't do that. So we ended up going and taking the TV, the movies, and everything back. And Canucci was still wanting to go and just watch movies. So he decided to go and borrow a key from one of the members of the bishopric, Brother King. He was pretty awesome. He let us have the key so we could just go over to the church and go and watch movies whenever we wanted. Again, not thinking like, oh, this is how it goes. Like, I'm not thinking anything else of it. But so we did that for a few days, and I was like, yeah, like, I'm done. Like, let's go and do something else. And went and spent time with members and things like that. But another story we had with Canucci is I remember someone else in one of their episodes talking about it was called Pint Uno. Never played it in my life, but I'm a pretty competitive guy. And so me and Canucci are sitting there playing it one night, and I think me and him both got into high double digits of pints of water that we drank. And so you can imagine with that amount of water, that night we didn't sleep much and had to go and make frequent trips to the restroom. Little did we know that the people below us heard every time we flushed. And so about 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, there's this guy banging on our door, yelling, swearing, saying all these things. We ended up having to call the police to go and get him escorted away because we were feared for our lives. So after that, we tried to go and look at going and getting a new flat and moving areas, which we ended up finding out that the lease wasn't up until April. So we were stuck. So we were very nervous every time we walked by. We'd like be very, very quiet when we walked past their door to go up the steps to go up to ours. But I heard later on in my mission that some other missionaries in that area ended up having a run-in with those guys, where one of them got hurt pretty good. So I don't know if they ended up moving but yeah, just not good.
I never heard of that kind of trouble coming from Pine Uno.
Yeah, I didn't think it would happen either, but it was a rough night. But
approximately how many times did you flush the toilet that night? Do you have an idea?
Oh, it had to have been pretty close to double digits. Like, I mean, we were just constantly. It was like I would go, and then he would go, and then it was just like leapfrogging over each other. So I've never played it since. I don't have any plans to go and do it anytime soon. So, and then another fun experience we had. Brother King, who I mentioned, was in the bishopric. He had a buddy that dealt with some Masonic temple stuff. We actually got to go and walk around in one, and it was the weirdest thing ever. Some of the stuff they had and some of the things inside there I tried to go and find my camera or like some of the pictures or like cards or wherever I stored them, because they told us we couldn't take pictures inside there. So I was like, okay, that's fine, that's fine. So they walked with those guys to go up to like the second floor, and I snuck back and actually took a picture of like the main hall, and I can't find it anywhere. I was gonna try to find it to go. It's just the weirdest thing.
Some other
inside there,
missionaries who had one of their friends that they were teaching was like the cleaning lady for the Masonic temple. So
Oh,
she took
really?
them in after hours and they had pictures. And
Oh wow! Oh wow!
that's interesting. Yeah.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! So I served with Elder Canucci for 3 months. So the first area I was in was Gilmark. I was there for 6 months. Got Luke's calls saying I was going to Glen Rothes to serve with Elder Clark, and we were whitewashing in and opening up. I don't know if we were opening up a new area there, because we ended up staying with the Kirkcaldy elders. I think it was kind of weird. So we were actually, I believe, called to Kirkcaldy, but we ended up serving in Glen Rothes because we didn't have a car and the other guys did. So they were actually able to drive down to their area and we couldn't. So it was kind of weird that way. But we had a lot of fun. Me and Elder Clark, I watched his episode, and how he was saying I was trying to go and baptize everybody that was driving by as they were driving by in their cars. But yeah, me and him had a lot of fun. He's a great guy. I still talk to him every once in a while through Facebook, and I go and listen to his music group that he has. I go and listen to them. So he's a great guy. Served with him for 3 months. I actually saw a little bit of success missionary work wise with him. We had a lot of people that we were teaching. One guy we actually kind of took from the Kirkcaldy elders. His name is Paul McGinnis. He was pretty awesome. We would go and teach him, and he would go and listen to everything we had to say. And it seemed like anything that we gave him and any challenge we gave him, he was just like, "Oh yeah, I can do that. I could do that." So he had a problem with smoking. So we went and did the non-smoking program with him. And I remember we went there the next week, and he just had this can that he was like, "Look at all this money that I've saved from not smoking." He's like, "Can you believe this?" I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Like you can have that all the time. Like you just don't go smoke." Like he was awesome. We taught him. He ended up getting baptized. And then as we were going and teaching him, his wife would kind of hang around. She started hanging around more and more as we were teaching him. And so we were like, "Oh, well, would you like to hear the discussions as well? Like listen to the lessons?" And she's like, "Yeah." So we actually had a really cool experience with that, because she ended up getting baptized as well, but he was the one that baptized her. So it was pretty cool. And then it was like our whole wish, like going and baptizing families, was like what you wanted to do as a missionary.
Yeah.
Was starting to come forth, because we baptized Paul. Sharon was then baptized, and we started teaching their son as well. And he was coming to church with them, and he was coming to like the young men activities and doing stuff. So we're just like, "Oh man, this is amazing! Like we're gonna be able to go and baptize a family. Like we're gonna bring them." And so it was really awesome. He ended up not getting baptized. He just didn't want to kind of change who he was hanging out with. So he ended up kind of, but we'd still go over there and talk to him. He's a pretty cool kid. Just had no desire after a while. But a lot of the members there were pretty awesome. The Maitlands, they were awesome. I remember it was you, Jack, that served in.
Jim and Georgine.
Yep, Jim and Georgine. Yeah. I love Jim. He would always. We'd always go to his house, and when we'd leave, we'd go and be like, "Oh, we love you, Jim," and he'd just, "Oh no, mama." But we do it every single time.
Great.
Yeah, we do it every single time. So then we ended up getting a picture. I think it was me and Elder Clark and the two other elders that were in that area. We took a picture of ourselves and put it in a picture frame. And then on the picture, we put in writing, "Love you, Jim," and went and set it in their house. And so he ended up warming up to us. He wasn't really big on missionaries, but he ended up warming up to us quite a bit when we were going there. And
that's great.
Had a lot of spiritual experience with Georgine. They were just an amazing family. There's so many families in that ward that were amazing. The Black.
Was Alan Black the ward mission leader?
Yeah, he was the ward mission leader when we were there. Going over to his house with him and his wife and his daughter for ward mission lead the meetings for that was awesome. There was Dale and Mary Black. They were awesome. Their kids were amazing. Love their kids. And then there was all the Brown family. There was all sorts of connections there with the Brown family. They were awesome. But just had a really great experience there with Elder Clark. So I ended up serving there with Elder Clark for 3 months. And then strange thing happened. So the other elders that were in the area at the same time were Elder Marsh and Elder Gardner. And then Elder Marsh moved on, and Elder Stoughton came in. And so the next moves after Elder Clark, Elder Stoughton and me basically swapped companions. So we moved, but we didn't really move, I guess. So I ended up serving with Elder Gardner, and Elder Clark went to serve with Elder Stoughton. So still the same area, but didn't really move. Elder Gardner was awesome. I got along with him. I pretty much got along with all of my companions. I'm a pretty easygoing guy, so I get along with everybody pretty easy. But served with Elder Gardner for 1.5 months. So one moves. Then he moved out of the area, and I served with Elder King. And I remember watching his episode. That was where we actually found out that we're somewhat related.
Okay.
He's he's like so my mom's sister's daughter married someone that's on his side of the family or something like that. So kind of a weird little connection, but served with Elder King for one moves. I remember him talking about having a run-in with one of the members or one of the recent converts. The guy that he actually had the run-in with was Paul. And at the time, Paul was training to go into mixed martial arts. And I don't know what exactly happened or what was said or if anything was said or what went on there. But Paul basically just told him that he didn't want Elder King to come around him at all. So that was kind of hard because you want to go and see your recent converts, help them kind of stay active, but we couldn't do that. So Elder King ended up moving. So I served with him for 6 months. I ended up staying in Glen Rothes. And ended up serving with Elder Marconi, which I know he was on for a little bit in Harlow's episode, a little bit. I love serving with him. He was awesome. I'm pretty sure the members were probably getting sick of me showing up on Sunday after news calls, thinking eventually he's got to move on. He's got to get out of here at some point. So the first 13 months of my mission, I served in 2 areas.
So
But I
total
had
time in Glen Rothes was 7.5?
months. Yeah,
Yeah.
7.5. Yeah. So, so but in those time I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 6 companions in 2
Wow.
areas. So, starting to think maybe I was not they weren't getting along with me or something.
Glen Rothes they have a way of keeping missionaries there, I guess, because I was there for
Yeah.
7.5 as well. Elder Bass, who was there when I got there, was there for 9 months.
Oh, wow. Wow.
There was some long tenured ones before you, so.
Well, I mean, it was a great ward. I mean, the
Yeah,
members there were awesome.
I wasn't complaining about being left there.
Yeah, I got along great with everybody. Like, loved going. Like, they had plenty of people that were willing to go and feed you the dinners and things like that. We'd always have dinners. We'd always have people for teaches and things like that. Like, just a great ward for missionary work. So after Glen Rothes, me and Elder Webb whitewashed Perth,
Oh, wow.
which, from what I heard, was predominantly a sisters area. So we whitewashed in and took over after the sisters were there and had no idea where we were going, what we were doing. So the starting off there was a little rough. We didn't see a lot of success for a few weeks, and then started figuring some stuff out. Stopped by some investigators that they had been teaching or had been taught in the past. And in that area, we got my first ever media referral.
Okay.
I can't remember. I know it was for a movie. I can't even remember which one it was. But we ended up going and dropping the movie off, and we're always thinking, like, it's a media referral. Like, nothing's gonna come of this. Like, nobody's ever had. But we ended up teaching him, and he ended up getting baptized.
Nice.
So it was like, we went into it thinking nothing was going to happen, and then one thing led to another, and we ended up going and having some success. And
I always went into those thinking something would happen and nothing did. So
yeah, so maybe it's just a different mindset. I don't know. But Perth was a great area as well. It's a branch there. And I remember first time going to church on Sunday. So this is the first time I'd been in a branch ever. And there was like 25 people that showed up to church. And half of that, I kid you not, half of that was one family. It's the Han family. They were a great family. They had lots of kids. The kids were awesome. I remember one time going to church on Sunday, and the branch president came up to us and said, "Hey, the people that were supposed to speak today didn't show up, so you and your companion are going to have to go and each give a 25-minute talk." We both just looked at each other like, 25 minutes? Like, are you kidding me? So I think I got up and basically taught the first lesson over the pulpit, taught the restoration.
Nice.
And Elder Webb got up there and taught the plan of salvation over the pulpit. And that was basically what our talks were. So we had them ready to go because that's kind of what we were teaching and going. So we were ready to go with that. But only served in Perth for one move. So for 6 weeks. After the 6 weeks, I ended up moving to Edinburgh, to the Meadows, with Elder Waite. He's from England. Awesome missionary. Just really, really a go-getter. Just always wanting to work, going, pushing me. So it was kind of nice. Whenever I didn't really feel like it, he kind of pushed me. He was fairly new think he'd only been out for maybe 4 or 5 months, or 4.5 or something months, something like that. So he was pretty new. But we had some really great experiences with him. I remember one, some of our appointments had fallen through, so we went to go and catch a bus to go to an area just to go and do some finding or stopping some people on Princess Street or something like that, just to go and try to fill out the rest of the night. And we missed our bus. So we're just kind of thinking like, oh, what do we do now? Like, so we ended up just stopping people pretty close by our flat. And we met a guy named Victor. I believe this was on a Monday or a Tuesday night. I think it was a Monday night. We handed him a Book of Mormon because we both felt impressed that we needed to give him a Book of Mormon. And we set an appointment for the next day. We get a joint teach to come with us to his apartment, and we go and knock on the door, and he doesn't answer. We're just like, oh, great. Like, again, like another person's fallen through. So we knocked again, still no answer. So we gave him a call just to see where he was at, and he was breathing heavy, like he'd been running. And so he lived up on kind of a 3-4 story building, and he was on like the top floor. So we kind of walked down the stairs, and we see him running down the street. We're like, oh, okay, he's coming. Like, we'll go and he wanted to be a good host, and he didn't have anything to drink in the house, so he ran to the corner shop to get us something to drink. So we had something to drink when we got into his house.
Wow.
Wow.
And so we go and teach him the first lesson, and the first thing he says after we get done teaching the lesson is, "Wow, this Joseph Smith must be an amazing man." And we're both sitting there thinking, like, yeah, like he's awesome. Like, and so we scheduled him for another teach the next day. So this was Tuesday. We saw him Wednesday. When we get there Wednesday, he has read all of First Nephi in the Book of Mormon and has understood everything. And he turns to us after we teach him the plan of salvation. We go and teach everything. He's like, I've been reading in the Book of Mormon, and I see how important baptism is. He's like, I want to be baptized. We didn't even have to go and invite him. Like, he was just like, I want to be baptized. And he's like, I want to be baptized as soon as possible. We had already had a baptism scheduled for somebody else Sunday. So we were talking to him and saying like, oh, well, we have a baptism scheduled Sunday. Like, he's like, yeah, that works for me. And we're just sitting there kind of thinking like, I don't know. We'll go and ask a few questions, like talk to our like leaders and kind of see if that's okay. So we called the zone leaders, tell them what is going on. And they're like, oh yeah, well if he wants to, like, yeah. And then the mission president heard about it. So we ended up teaching him on Saturday the final lessons that we needed to go over with him. And he had a sit-down interview with the mission president at the church to go and make sure he was okay to be baptized this quick and this soon. Because I mean, we just stopped him on the Monday, and this is Sunday.
Yeah.
And he came out of the meeting, and he came up to us and said, elders, like, he's good to go. Like, he's ready. Like, he'll be baptized Sunday. And he was awesome. Elders would go and take him out on joint teaches. Like, a week after him being baptized, he was going out with the missionaries, teaching other people about the church. Like, he was just so amazing. Like,
that's more than a golden investigator. That's like platinum investigator or something.
Yeah, and it all happened because we ended up missing our bus. Like, thinking of that, like, if we would have gotten on that bus, we wouldn't have saw him and met him.
Wow.
So, like, the Lord had his hand in that one for sure. Like, and he was just awesome. And then another guy that we ended up teaching, I know somebody else brought him up on their episode. I can't remember who it was, but a guy named Brian Ford. I believe he was another media referral. We show up to his apartment to drop off what we were dropping off, and we find out that he's blind.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
we're just kind of thinking like, oh man, like how are we going to do this? Like how are we going to? He can't read the scriptures to go and like. So we would go and teach him, and we'd go over the scriptures that we wanted him to go and like ponder on and do things like that. And as we were teaching him, before he got baptized, he ended up ordering the Book of Mormon in Braille, and it came to the mission home, and we had to go and haul all those boxes and binders to his home.
It's like 30 binders, right?
Yeah, it was insane. Like he'd always take them with him when he would come to church as well. Like he'd have this big old duffel bag that he'd have walking behind him so he could bring his scriptures to church.
That's awesome.
That is. Wow.
But yeah, we ended up teaching him. He was awesome. He would also go on joint teaches as well with the missionaries. We also ended up going, while I was with Elder Waite, we ended up training in a Tri-Companionship with Elder Forth. And we actually ended up going on splits with Brian Ford, and the other two elders would go somewhere else. And we'd go and like knock on doors and go and do contacting and things like that, or go to teaches and things like that. But with Brian Ford, that was the first time. I remember when it came up to his baptism, he didn't mention this to us any time before, but it's like the day before, he told us he had a fear of water. Like just him being baptized backwards in the water, just with him being blind, it was too much for him. And so that was the first time I've ever seen anybody be baptized forward when they were getting baptized. But that was pretty awesome, seeing that. And just serving in the Edinburgh Ward, there's just so many missionaries around. Like it's a big ward, plenty of people to go out on teaches, plenty of people willing to do member missionary work. It was an awesome area to serve in. We also had a lot of fun with Elder Ray and Elder Ashton, who they served in Meadows too. And as I was reading through my journal, I don't think there was a day. There may have been like 3 or 4 days in that 3 months that I was there that we didn't go and spend time with them or have lunch with them or doing something with them. So they were just some great missionaries as well, being around them. So after, so we ended up training Elder Forth. So I was with Elder Waite for 6 weeks, and then another 6 weeks while we trained Elder Forth in a Tri-Companionship. And then from there, I ended up getting moved, and those two stayed. And I moved to Motherwell, or Murderwell, as I've heard other people say. And I served there with Elder Shenton, another amazing missionary. Just got along with well with him. Serving in Motherwell, they had a lot of good members. I think it was just not the most recent episode, but the one before that. I think it was Elder Dunn was talking about Craig Mitchell. He was actually the ward mission leader in that ward when we were there.
Oh, cool.
We spent a lot of time at his house with him and his family, and they were just awesome. He was always willing to go out with us. Anytime we'd go over there and tell him what was going on in the area, he'd basically like, "Oh, what do you need? What can I do for you? Like, what can I do to get the members going?" Things like that. He was just awesome. But I only served in Motherwell for 6 weeks. And then I ended up moving to Falkirk with Elder Smith. And Elder Smith had been there for a little bit, so he kind of knew what was going on. And we got along great. I got along great with him. Another great area. The members there were awesome. There was the Sneddons, McCormick's. Oh, I'm probably going to leave out so many members. The Kirks were there. The Irvins, they were awesome. Great family. Loved them. We'd go over their house for family home evenings and stuff, and they were just awesome.
There was multiple generations of the Irvins, right?
I believe so. I think there was only, because there was the mom and dad, and then there was the son that was there as well with his family.
The older sister, Irvin, I ended up in a ward with her sister when I lived in the Fort Worth area in Texas. I heard the accent at church, I'm like, "Are you from?" Well, she's like, "Yeah, I'm from there, but you don't know anything, right?" And she's from Falkirk. I'm like, "Okay, I know your sister."
Yeah,
so
little
pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, wow,
This is awesome.
Yeah, I had friends with all of them on Facebook. Like I don't keep in contact with a lot of people as much as I said I was going to in my journals. I said I was going to keep in touch with a lot of them, and I haven't really been good on it. But I'll go on there and wish them happy birthdays and things like that when it comes up and things. But yeah, and then with Elder Smith, I served with him there for 3 months. And it was just a great area. We saw some success. It was kind of slow. We'd stop by a lot of less actives. We'd go and stop by former investigators, things like that, trying to go and get things going. And one of the less actives that we ended up stopping by was, I'm going to forget his name now. His first name's Craig. I know his first name's Craig. I can't remember his last name, but him and his wife were watching their niece at the time. And she was willing to listen to the discussions. And so we started teaching her at the time and became really good friends with her mom, who I think was a less active as well. She stopped going. So she was okay with us teaching her. So we ended up teaching her, baptizing her. Her name was Sarah. And then her mom's friend, she started coming back to church. And then we ended up going over to their house and kind of seeing the family, interacting with them. And they had a friend that would always come over. And so she started getting interested in the church as well. So we started teaching her. She ended up getting baptized as well and joining the church. So we started to see a lot of success, like through hard work and just trying to go and do whatever we could. And while I was with Elder Smith during that 3 months, we ended up both training another missionary. His name was Elder James. I must not have been trusted enough to go and train a missionary by myself or something. So every time I trained a missionary, it was always in a tri-companionship. So the Elder James, he was from England, but he just had a really hard time starting off on his mission. His sister got married in the temple while he was in the MTC. And they were nice and let him go to the wedding and go to the sealing and everything that took place. And so when he got out in the mission, me and Elder Smith would catch him looking at photos of his family on his camera all the time. And so we're just sitting there thinking like, oh man, he's homesick. Like he would also like be physically sick. And I don't know if it was like a combination of just wanting to be home or actually being sick. We weren't even sure. And so the first interviews that we had with President, we kind of brought up our concerns with him. And then President went and talked with Elder James, and Elder James was told that his grandfather had died. And so he was basically given the choice to stay out on his mission, or he could go home with his family and be there for the funeral. So he ended up staying out for the 6 weeks, but I don't know if he ended up staying or if he went home. I never saw him. I mean, I only had a few more months left on my mission, so I didn't really see him or know if he was still around or if he'd gone home. But he was just so homesick. He, like, every day we'd get to the flat, and he'd just be going through photos of his family. So it was pretty hard on him.
From the interview through the end of your moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I can't remember what exactly happened, if he went home or if I'm not exactly sure. So after Elder Smith and Elder James, they both left. I stayed in Falkirk, and I served with Elder Paternoster. He had just come over from Dundee area. I believe he was serving in Alloa. Got along great with him. He's an awesome missionary. Learned a lot from him. Another person we saw a lot of success working with less actives, trying to get them back going to church. I remember with him, me and him would go and play with Brother Watt. We'd go and play squash. I don't know if you guys have ever played squash. It's kind of like racquetball. And Brother Watt, he's not the slimmest guy, but me and Elder Paternoster could not beat him. And he was just moving around the court, going and doing things, and I'm just trying to figure. I'm like sitting there thinking, like, how is this possible? Like, there's just no way. Like, we can't beat him. We can't do anything. Like, but he would go, and every P day he would go and take us to like the rec center there, and he'd pay for us to go and play squash with him, and we'd go and play, and it was fun to go and do that. So during the 3 months there with Elder Paternoster, once again, we both trained another missionary, Elder Talbot. So like I said,
serious.
Every time I was a trainer, was in a tri-companionship. So I don't know.
That is so unique.
Yeah. So I had 3 of those, and it was all within the last like 6, 7, 8, like 9 months of my mission too. So the Elder Talbot was cool. He's I can't remember if he was from Utah or Idaho, but he's a cowboy, like through and through. Like, he would go and do cattle roping, like in rodeos,
right?
Like competitively. Like, he was pretty awesome to go and be around with. But just had fun in Falkirk with all the members there. And then the last week of my mission, one missionary ended up going a week early, or his family came over a week early. I can't remember. So I ended up serving a week, my very last week in the mission, in Edinburgh with Elder Whetstone for a week. So
Whetstone.
It was pretty fun. He was another fairly new missionary when I was there. I think he'd only been out for like 3 months. So fairly new, but yeah. And one other thing I wanted to, so Brady Hess, I remember him talking about Elder Clark during one of the zone conferences with Dallin H. Oaks. He said that he asked Dallin H. Oaks after the conference if he'd seen Jesus Christ in the flesh. It was actually during like a question and answer during the conference when everyone was there.
Oh my gosh.
So I tried to go and I thought I wrote down the scriptures that he gave us to go and look at and study and look at and read, but I couldn't find them anywhere. I don't know. I looked through my study stuff and couldn't find it, but it basically, like, without saying it, but it basically said, like, yeah, I have, but yeah, so but yeah, Elder Clark, he was just, if he wanted to go and say something or do something, he was just the bravest missionary I knew. He would go and do it, and no fear. But yeah, but
That's amazing. You got quite an amazing list of of companions that you served with and areas you served in. That's really incredible.
Yeah, I was really lucky. Served in some really good areas, really great companions. Enjoyed my mission. It was awesome. Haven't made it back. Me and my wife keep talking about wanting to go back, and just haven't been able to find a time, the funds to go and do it yet. So eventually I'd love to go back there and just show her everywhere I was at and things like that. So, but
yeah, absolutely.
That's great. So you mentioned a couple of experiences, but do you have any other things to share about, your experience with mission president and his wife, the Fredricks?
I remember some of the journal entries that I had, just the vision that they had for the mission was just insane. I remember 2006, just the goals for baptism, I think, was over. They wanted to have a goal of like 100 baptisms in the mission or something like that. And then through all 2007, they wanted to go and have, I can't remember the number, but I believe it was in like the middle of like mid 200s is what they wanted baptism wise. And then I remember reading in one of my journal entries, 2008, they set a goal for 504 baptisms in the mission. And I remember 2007, we actually hit that goal of, like, I think we actually exceeded the goal that they had set. That's why they set the 2008 one so much higher.
Yeah.
But just the vision that they had and the focus on the member missionary work, you could see how it started to change the mission. People that we were teaching became a lot more solid because they had somebody in the church that they were friends with. They'd go on joint teaches with us. So it wasn't just two young missionaries going and sharing it and teaching it. It was somebody that they knew, had a friendship with. But just the vision that they had in the mission was just amazing. Very inspired man. Can't say enough about them. Just how much they showed their love for us as missionaries, but loved the Fredricks. They were awesome.
Great.
But,
yeah, you've shared a lot of great experiences, and cool to hear. For me, it's like just hearing how the work continued after I left. So it's always good to hear. That's been one of the benefits of this podcast, is getting to hear a span of, I think we've had people from a couple years before me, a couple years after me. So that 6 years when you and your brothers were serving, that's
it was crazy. Yeah, like my brother literally came home, I think 3 months after I had already been out on my mission. And the funny thing about that is he really wanted to go to Scotland. He was listening to bagpipe music, everything before he got his mission call, and he ended up serving in Uruguay.
Not quite Scotland.
Not quite Scotland. When he found out I was going there, he was pretty jealous. But yeah, I think it was Elder Halford was saying that he had, I think it was a 4-year span where he didn't see his brother.
Right.
So I had 2 of them, 4 from one and then 4 from the younger one. So, but
wow.
But yeah,
All right, I have to ask you a question. You survived the time of hammer time.
Yes.
What was your experience with that in the mission?
So I had a lot of reading through my journals. I had a lot of good things to say about it and a few bad things to say about it. Like some of the things that they would do, I understood it, the principles and like the things behind it. Being more obedient, going to go and bring you more success and things like that. But then I remember in one of the, I think it was when I was in Perth, the zone leaders came into our flat with me and the Elder Webb, and they just started pointing out stuff that we had that was just, and like the stuff that we had wasn't really bad, but they told us to get rid of it. They ended up taking one of my ties and ripping it in front of me. And so things like that, I felt like it maybe went a little too far. But a lot of it I understood and agreed with. Like, you go and follow the rules more strictly, you're more obedient, the more blessings are going to come, the more success you're going to have on the mission. I understood all that. I was okay with it. Just a few of the things that I guess, I don't know, not necessarily around hammer time, but some of the things that I didn't agree with some of the things that was going on with the mission was some of the people that we were teaching and baptizing, I felt like were getting baptized too soon. I remember reading, so going through my journals, especially in Edinburgh with Elder Waite, a lot of the times in my journal, we taught them the first lesson and scheduled them for baptism for like 3 weeks away. And some of them, I'm sitting there looking and watching it. I was like, reading my journal, thinking like they're not ready. Like it's too soon.
Right.
And we were hitting numbers. We were doing what we were supposed to hit numbers wise. But at the same time, I wonder how many of them are still active or if it was something that was rushed and too soon. I remember in Kilmarnock, I don't know if you guys ever heard about the baseball baptisms that happened.
Yeah.
In Kilmarnock, there was actually a member in that ward that was a result of the baseball baptisms. She just stayed, just kept going from the younger age and just kept going, just something to do. I wouldn't really necessarily relate it to the baseball baptisms. I felt like in some parts we were rushing people into baptism in a way that weren't ready, kind of a thing. That has nothing to do with the hammer time part of it, but I know a lot of it was leaders were wanting people to go and hit numbers. And the mission became a lot more number focused than it was going and actually teaching and doing things like that. But I still enjoyed my mission, still loved it, had a great time, enjoyed my companions, so it was good.
What's a food memory you have?
We went and ended up
question, Jack.
we went and ended up having breakfast at a non-member's home, and it was a traditional Scottish breakfast. So I don't know if you know what's served with a traditional Scottish breakfast.
Black pudding.
Yes. So I actually ate black pudding, but I didn't know that I did because I thought it was just a sausage. Because it was a circle, like it was just sitting there thinking like, oh, it's breakfast, it's a sausage. And then after we ate it, they told us what it was, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. We went and like looked it up and saw what it was, and we're just kind of like, we just ate that? Like, I don't even know if we're allowed to. Like, is that okay? Like, what's going on? But yeah, that was my most extreme food experience there.
The rest of that breakfast is great, right?
Oh yeah.
The fry up, all of that stuff's good. So.
Oh yeah. Just black pudding needs to be left off. That'd be all right.
That was against the rules when I was there. I have a brother-in-law who served in the UK though, and he said it was against the rules until he got a mission president from the UK, and then the mission president from the UK was like, "Yeah, of course, eat it."
Yeah, we didn't bring it up to President Fredrick or anything either. We just kind of left that and just kind of like, it happened. We'll just keep it between us. But
Oh,
That's
man.
good.
Do you ever wonder if you missed anything in your mission because you didn't serve north of Perth?
yeah, I don't know. I would have always loved to have gone further north and just to go and see everything up there, and just listening to some of the stories of the other missionaries that served further north and some of their experiences. I would have been nice to go and experience that, but I love the areas I served in. Like, I wouldn't change it for the world. So
Another reason to go back, right? To see the
oh
highlands.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, so I kind of lied. I actually did go back with my parents and sister like
Okay.
a week after I got home.
Oh, nice.
So we were able to go around to some of the people I taught and the members and stuff there. So we did go back, but
Cool.
I'd still like to go back now that it's a little bit more time has gone by and go
Yeah.
back there. So
And take
But-
your wife.
oh yes. She's been mentioned it a few times. So
Cool.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences. The last ask that we have for you is, you mentioned all these great missionaries, and we've only had 2 of them on the podcast so far.
oh really? Wow.
I mean, we'll get to Alberto Marconi in the future. I know he came on as kind of a guest host, but
Yeah.
But nonetheless, our work is never finished as far as reaching more people. So
Oh yeah.
the ask of you is, those that you're still in contact with, please share this with them, invite them to participate, and just let them know that we'd love to hear from them, because every single person has such a unique story and a unique experience that, I mean, for heaven's sakes, you had 3 I wrote it down, Tri-Training Companionships.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely got to hold the record for that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. I don't know what it was, but he must have just felt it was a good thing. So
That, or just odd numbers, and they're like, "Oh, other Stoddar's done that before. We can send them to him."
yeah, maybe that's it too. That's possible. That's possible. Oh.
Man, well,
Yeah,
is there? Go
I
ahead.
think you guys have only talked to 2 other people from my missionary group that went out too. Lucas,
Yeah.
Christian Lucas, and Elder Clark. So there's
Okay.
still quite a bit from that group that I'll have to see if I can get in touch with them. Or
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are the people that we all have the best relationships with, right?
yeah,
You know, apart from our companions, it's our MTC groups, and then obviously our favorite missionaries. So, you know, you've got Elder Stoughton. I'd love to get Elder Marsh on. I trained him, and so
oh really? He was awesome. He
he's
was awesome.
he's a great missionary. But man, um, I don't know. I've lost contact with him. I need to get in touch with him and try and get him on the podcast. So
Yeah, I know I'm friends with him on Facebook, but that's about as much contact. I see things that he posts about his family and stuff like that, but that's about it.
right
So maybe if I go, I'll post this on Facebook and I'll tag him in it, see if I can get him to
there you go.
comment or do
That's
something.
all we ask, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really the key to all this, is the word spreads, and then people discover the podcast and realize that we've been here for, gosh, it's already December.
6 months, 7 months.
For
Yeah.
7 months. I mean, we've talked to a lot of great people, but there's just so many more still to come. So
Oh yeah, that's how I found out, was Elder Clark. He tagged me in it, and so that's
Perfect.
where I got started with it. So
Love to hear that.
so
Well, yeah, it's
Yep.
been great. We've really enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it as well. It's been fun, especially going and I basically read through my journal for the whole 2 years that I was out. So it was first time I've done that for a while. So it was fun to go and relive some of those experiences, and remember some of the members and the people that I was in contact with there. So it was awesome.
That's great. Yep.
Jack, wasn't Falkirk where the McFeast happened?
Yep.
Oh, I forgot to mention that. Oh, she was awesome. 3-course, 4-course meal every time we went there. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
I could just think about that meal and get full. So
I don't know what she did with the soups, but the soups just always tasted amazing. I don't know what it was. Like
best soup I've ever had in my life, for sure.
I've never had anything similar to it here at home. But it just, man.
Damn.
Yes.
I was certain you were going to bring that up as a food memory when Jack asked you that question. I was like, come on, he's got to say it.
I totally forgot about that, but yeah. Oh, 4-course meal every time you went there. It was awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Anthony, thank you for joining us, and we love you as our brother in Scotland.
I love you guys too. Thank you for having me.
Wish you and your family the best.
Thank you. Same to yours.
All right, brother.
We'll see you.
Have a good night.